Well, hello there. I'm Teresa Norton, and I want to welcome you back to The View from Abroad. I'm the Broad, and this is the podcast where every week we take a look at a column I wrote for Hong Kong's South China Morning Post every Saturday. It was in the paper between 1993 and 2000. And each week I invite a guest to come along and sort of unpack the column. And today I have a dear friend in my guest who is Betty Cheung. Born in Taipei, Betty grew up in Toronto. She studied architecture there. She worked as an architect in Toronto and also in Hong Kong. And then she answered her inner call to focus on art. And what ultimately transpired was ArtJamming, a freestyle painting studio for social bonding and self-discovery and a lot of fun. I had many happy hours in the ArtJamming studio. But before Betty comes with us, let's take a look at the column that she chose. Holidays, Halloween wins, hands down. I don't know, maybe I'm nuts, but looking back while I reveled in the Christmas season, counted down the days until my birthday party each year, and spent the whole of Lent fantasizing about what sinfully rich chocolates might be in my Easter basket, my favorite holiday was the one that celebrated ghosts, witches, ghouls, and monsters. I lived the other 364 days for Halloween. I don't know if it was the budding performer in me adoring the opportunity to dress up as anything from Scarlett O'Hara to a bar of soap, a medieval princess to redecorating the same conical hat, a Christmas tree, or the sack full of candy I'd empty on the living room floor at the end of the evening. But Halloween was my favorite holiday, hands down. The routine was that one parent would take me door to door throughout the neighborhood while the other manned the candy bowl by the front door of our own home, at the ready when the doorbell rang and pint-sized collections of ghosts, pirates, baseball players, and princesses would cry, "Trick or treat!" It wasn't just about looking scary. Halloween was about living out your fantasy for a night. The scrawniest boy on the block would thrust out his trick-or-treat bag dressed as Superman. The girl who lived with Patty the Fatty for the rest of the year was Sleeping Beauty on the night of October 31st. The neighborhood scaredy cat enjoyed a reign of terror dressed as the Mummy, and the only kid on the block whose family owned a color TV and 2 cars went out slumming as a tramp. There was a costume competition at the local shopping center, complete with floodlights and a stage, but I don't remember any of us particularly caring about winning. It was more about getting a chance to parade around in fantastic disguise. We wanted to get some mileage out of those get-ups. During the years when I was a Girl Scout, the Halloween party offered another opportunity to swan around in full regalia, plus there'd be a haunted house where you'd stick your hand into a covered bowl to discover eyeballs, those were peeled grapes, and monkey brains, warm boiled cauliflower. It was all deliciously stomach-churning, but not enough to put you off your candy haul. Sackfuls to be carefully counted, sorted, partially consumed, and then counted and sorted again. Chocolates in one heap, hard candy in another. Chocolates divided into subgroups. Hard candy, like lollipops, jawbreakers, and tongue-destroying tablets of sugar and citric acid called sweet tarts, fell into one, and miscellaneous items like wax lips formed another. The weeks following Halloween made the online auction eBay look like child's play. I'll trade you an Abba Zaba and 3 wax fingernails for those Hershey bars. I can't eat peanut butter. It makes me throw up. But I'll trade you 2 pixie sticks for a sugar daddy. Unless you already licked it. Did you lick that sugar daddy already and just wrap it up again? If so, then no way. You'll have to throw in a giant sweet tart. This went on until everybody was pretty much down to mini sticks of chewing gum and stale popcorn balls wrapped in worn wax paper, which your mother would discover under the bed sometime around March. Oh, it was bliss. I've had to work a little harder than my folks did to ensure my kids here in Hong Kong get to go trick-or-treating. My friend Sherry tells me of the time she sent her kids around her apartment block and they came back saying, "Mom, do we have to keep doing this? The neighbors think we're begging." But G and I are willing to schlep the kids off to a friend's building where there are plenty of folks with Mars bars at the ready. You can keep your 4th of July and your Thanksgiving. The tradition I want to pass on to my kiddies is the one where they learn the value of masking their identity, threatening people in their own homes, and gorging themselves on candy they've taken from strangers. God bless America. And trick or treat, smell my feet, give me something good to eat. Hello, Betty. It is so good to have you here.
I'm so glad to be here. This is so fun.
Yeah, wonderful. We met through your Art Jam studio on Wellington Street.
Well, I wanted to backtrack a little bit further because I discovered you while looking for work in Hong Kong when I arrived in 1993. In February 1993, I arrived in Hong Kong. I bought the South China Morning Post, Saturday Post. It was like yay thick. And that's, apart from flipping through the classifieds, I also discovered your column. And I swear I read it every week, every single week. And interestingly enough, after your column ended, that's when I met you. So that was kind of cool. That was a little funny little segue into us meeting, I think.
Well, thank you for sharing that. I won't act like I didn't know that you read the column because you've been generous in the past to say to me that you enjoyed it on the Saturdays with your cup of coffee and piece of toast.
Absolutely.
So the column that we looked at here was this one about Halloween. And I did a little bit of research. It began, actually, the whole Halloween thing started as Samhain, which is spelled nothing like it's pronounced. It's a Celtic word. And it was a festival that celebrated the end of summer and the beginning of winter. And it was yet another example of a sort of druidy celebration that got repackaged and hijacked by Holy Mother the Church and became All Saints' Day or All Souls' Day. And then it spread to North America, of course, during immigration of Irish and Scottish people during the 19th century. So it was in America that it got dressed up and included those fabulous costumes and trick-or-treating, which apparently the American candy industry heavily influenced through the commercialization of Halloween with all those sweets. It contributed not only to its global spread, but to the spread of my hips. So there we go.
And my tooth decay.
Thank you, America, for all of that. I was at a dinner party with some people from the Netherlands, and they were just like appalled to hear about all of that candy stuff. Was it a big thing for you?
Well, I was introduced to it. I mean, I immigrated to Canada when I was 3. So I don't remember so well what happened in kindergarten. I mean, I remember kindergarten, but I don't remember the Halloween part of it. But I do remember my first memory of Halloween, I think, was 2nd grade. I think that teacher had a lot more of the festive vibe for Halloween going, and we had to bring our own apples because she had this big bucket that was on the floor filled with water, and we were all tossing our apples in there. And we had to bob for apples, which I had no idea what that was. And so, I didn't actually properly know how to bob, but it was fantastic fun because we all got soaking wet and, we're in 2nd grade. What do we know?
Bobbing for apples was one of those things that, I mean, from a hygienic standpoint, is it any wonder why one kid gets a cold and then not only does the whole class come down, but everybody's family is sick? Bobbing for apples involved everybody, biting into apples. And if it wasn't who knew whose apple you were biting? And if it fell out of your mouth, it fell into somebody else's.
This is our post-COVID brain talking, right? But before that, it was perfectly okay to share like that. But I do remember dressing up, and I do remember, designing our own terrible costumes and buying bad costumes. And, that was the sort of the different phases of the childhood experience of Halloween.
For me, that whole thing of having a huge sack filled with candy. And as I said in the column, divvying it up.
We had our favorites. It's like in your article, you're talking about which ones were our favorites. I mean, they were like, for me, it was Reese's peanut butter cups, because those were like rare that somebody in the neighborhood would splurge on buying Reese's peanut butter cups. Sun-made raisins were okay. I don't think there were that many healthy ones. I think one neighbor passed out apples one time. But just saying that, you were particular as a kid, right? Like what you would eat, what you thought was good, which, is so far from what you think is good now.
I got to tell you, I wasn't that particular, Betty. Honestly, I mean, even the only thing where I drew the line were those wax things, wax lips, wax nails. Wax. It was like, why did they make these? Because you're supposed to chew them, but then they fell into like 9,000 pieces in your mouth. It was never like gum. It didn't turn into like a nice chewy blob. It was just like eating a candle. Okay, so costumes.
Yeah.
I loved that aspect of it. Up until I was in my 20s, I loved that part of it. What about you?
As a kid, I had limited skill set. Like I hadn't learned how to sew yet, hadn't done those things. So, a lot of my costumes were made out of construction paper and any other kind of ready to go kind of things. But more recently, or actually when I first came to Hong Kong, we did dress up to go down to Lang Kwai Fong, and we just did really simple things like a cat's tail, and I made witches costumes, and I think I made a skunk tail for myself. So I was a skunk, my friend was a cat, and then there was a witch. And that was always fun because, you get to see everybody all dressed up. I mean, it wasn't even a competition we were going for. It was just part of the festive vibe of it all, right? So everybody was like just wanting to be noticed.
And isn't it a little bit like, sort of a masked ball type thing where even though you don't necessarily have a face mask on, you can kind of assume some other identity because you're dressed in a costume. You're kind of free to play that skunk or pussycat.
In the last few years, I've had some friends who've thrown some really big Halloween parties, and we get fully dressed up for it. So they have their theme, and then I'm so into it. Maybe now I have the tools. That's the big difference. I have my own paints. I know how to construct things from being an architect. I know how to do a lot more things. And it just got so much more exciting because I could construct, I think I was No Face one year, and I was San from Studio Ghibli's Princess Mononoke. And I think I also got dressed up as Genghis Khan. It was like complete transformation. I love that so much. That's so fun. I can't tell you.
Betty, I have seen those costumes, and I was on the phone with my son before this call, and he said, "Oh, Betty, and costumes." He said, "Didn't she melt like a Pepsi bottle and turn it into some kind of a glowing gem for one of her?"
I did that. Yeah. I took actually it was a blue Schweppes sparkling water bottle, and I melted it to become the crystal dagger that San got from the prince who received it from his sister. But anyway, it was just so fun to make. And I think maybe I'm at the right age to appreciate, the effort that you would have to put into it, the level of detail. As a kid, there was no real sense of detail, right? Like it was just like, here, patch for eye, here's a bandana for the pirate look, I mean, it was really dead simple, but now I really have fun with it.
Listen, wait a minute. I think maybe you may have missed your calling. Would you have ever been interested in being like the costume designer for movies or? Would that have been a fun job for
I
you?
think that would be such a fun job. I wish I had discovered it sooner. I didn't realize I had so much, um, you know, so much thrill out of dressing up. I
Enthusiasm.
remember watching kids shows and they would dress up and it was like, oh, that looks like fun. But I didn't think I would enjoy it as much as I actually do now, that's cool. I like that.
Now you came in 93. I arrived in 83. And when I came to Hong Kong, Halloween was a no-no because it was associated a lot with ghosts and, the undead and that kind of thing. And it was definitely
Mm.
verboten. But there was a turning point, and the turning point was Ocean Park.
Ah,
Ocean
yes,
Park,
yes.
right?
Yeah, they did a great
That
job.
changed everything. Did you ever go and do the Ocean Park thing?
I did do it a couple of times. Great fun. Total pitch darkness. It's great. I also did one year at Disneyland. Also, it's just so fun when the lights are off. And there's just you can barely see anything, and then they blow that
Yeah.
dry ice fog in. It's so fun.
Ooh.
All of a sudden, it's so creepy and eerie.
Ow, ow,
It's great.
ow.
And I think I really appreciate the fun of it now.
Yeah, right. I think as an adult, I have to say, up until like my 20s, I was very much into it. We lived in San Francisco, and my then boyfriend and I would go, he'd rent costumes. One year, this is terrible. One year, it was, God, I can't, this is all people, it's going to lower your estimation of me as a person. It was soon after
Right.
Sid Vicious had murdered his girlfriend. And we went
Uh-huh.
to a party at Sid Vicious and his girlfriend. And I
Oh,
had
no.
a little comb that was like a switchblade. And I asked my father if he could please help construct it so that went into a piece of plywood and could be, ace bandaged around my tummy so that when we slow danced, I could flip it up, but then I could flip it out, when we were doing our groove thing separately. And that's how we went to the party. Even at the party in San Francisco, people were like, that's not funny, that's sick. But we thought it was very
You're definitely you're walking that line. Yeah, for sure. And honestly, it is damn fun to scare people. I don't know why it is. It's terrible. It's probably mean, but it's incredibly fun.
well. And I think it's that weird thing of, why do we like being scared? Like, why is that a
No idea.
thrilling thing to go through those kind of spooky fun houses where somebody jumps out at, I'm too old for that now. I'd have a heart attack. I think that the fun in that has left me.
I think I'm still okay with it. I think it's a bit of a thrill. Like your heart gets pumping. It's very exciting. And I think that part is the part that it's roller coasters. It's all that kind of craziness, that danger /
And
fun.
I've said to people, listen, because I did, a lot of work with groups and presentation training. And I would say to them, if you think about it, the difference between the feeling that you have of dread and panic about getting up and speaking, and the feeling that you have of being on a thrilling and exciting roller coaster ride, they're kind of the same thing. It's sort of, oh, my palms are sweating. I got butterflies in my stomach. I've got shortness of breath. If you could just reposition that in your head and say, maybe I'm not terrified of getting up and giving this speech. Maybe it's just, I'm so excited about it that I can hardly contain myself. Listen, I want to take a break here because we're going to have a little chat about some of the interesting work that you're doing. And then when we come back, what I really want to hear is your true story that was unpacked by that Halloween column. Tell me, Betty, about Mellow Momentum.
Well, ever since I started this kind of creative pursuit, there's always kind of been a gallery in the center of it, the idea of a gallery. And in the very beginning, even before Art Jam was born, it sort of was born as a gallery first. And then we had, impromptu shows. We helped with various productions. We also held workshops, and eventually Art Jam grew from that. And we kept trying to put a gallery back into it, but it never quite gelled properly.
Because ArtJamming was, when I experienced it, people who aren't familiar with it, just so they know, you would come into this room with great music playing, and you could bring a bottle of wine if you wanted, and then you could pick out all the different paints were laid out, and you just basically bought a canvas, and then you were free to paint. And it didn't matter if you were an experienced painter or somebody like myself who was a total novice.
Mm-hmm.
You could go in and have this fun artistic experience in a community that was just kind of groovy and fun. So what you're saying is that you had that element happening at Wellington, but you didn't have the gallery exhibition side of it. Is that right?
Yes. I thought a lot of the work was very exhibition worthy. It was really quite amazing, but it would never really reside in our own space for people to view it and, appreciate it, except for on the night, right? Like as people are walking around and as people were looking at your painting and other people's paintings, there's a lot of dialogue there, and it's fun to see it happen, but it's also fun to see it sort of in its kind of like calm resting state. And I thought that would be a really complementary type of business, but it never got off the ground. So I've recently moved studios, and we're in Wong Chuk Hang, and I found a studio that turns out to be like the perfect proportion for all the things that I want to do. And there's a part of it, obviously the gallery is not going to take over ArtJamming. It's still going to be a companion to it. There's a museum in London, John Soane Museum. And John Soane was a very wealthy man who collected art and architecture from around the world. And he was a very rich hoarder who had a lot of servants to organize his hoarding. So he was able to pack like 100 paintings inside a cupboard with doors. Even the doors had art behind the doors and beyond the doors. So a little bit was inspired by that. So in my case, it'll be sort of doors upon doors upon doors, which will basically be walls. And I think that's going to be quite a fun project for me. And that's the secret sauce that I didn't have before. It's going to happen sometime this summer. At the moment, we don't have the Mellow Momentum website up, but the ArtJamming website is up. It's artjamming.com, artjamming.com. And you can get more information from there. We also have Instagram and Facebook.
Fantastic. And we are back. And of course, Betty, this is my absolute favorite part of the program. I want to hear what real event from your own life was spawned by that column.
I think it was the first time I actually spent a good deal of time making a costume. I dressed up as No Face, which is a character from the Studio Ghibli film Spirited Away. And I don't know if you've seen it, but he's basically got a big white mask and kind of like a black body, very like a reverse ghost with a mask. And what I liked about it is I'm only 5 feet tall, and of course, No Face is quite gigantic. And because I was completely concealed inside this thing, it was just so fun to turn up at the party and have no one have any idea it was me. Because there's no way from the height of No Face, which was a whole 1.5 feet taller than I was, that they could tell it was me. They just everybody jumped out of their skin as soon as they realized I was standing beside them and there's this giant thing. It was just so fun to transform myself physically into something so tall. I felt like I had satisfied a kind of almost like a bucket list thing. Like I could be tall for one day. It was very super fun.
We all have things where, like, I think, oh, I wish I had curly hair, or I wish my bum wasn't so big. Yeah. Was not being tall something that you always kind of bothered you?
It was definitely a childhood thing because we emigrated to Canada, and then there is at no point in time am I taller than any other kid in my class. So I was always the shortest kid in the class, right? So I'm also the shortest in my family. I mean, it's not that there's that much height difference, but I'm just saying, that's sort of something I don't think about it much these days, but it was something that I felt like I could address with the costume that I thought was, hey, I was thinking, this is like a mini bonus. I'm like, look, I'm up here. I had no complaints about that. I felt like that was a big super bonus, I mean, that nobody else could actually appreciate. It was just something for me that I could be, 1.5 feet taller just momentarily for a few hours. It was quite fun.
Yeah, that's wonderful. Thank you for sharing that story. I'm just going to wrap this up by saying that I did this last October 31st. I did get some. I thought, these kids don't need any more candy. I got some little like erasers, rubbers, and little fun things for kids to.
I'm sure you disappointed some kids.
The things that kids do not want, that's the stuff that I gave them. But I went to my park and I only saw maybe 3 little kids out. I think it's also the thing that I think it may be not such a big thing here in Portugal as it is, as it became in Hong Kong. The thrill for me, the last few Halloweens that I was in Hong Kong, and Happy Valley got completely transformed from a place where kids never went out and dressed up when I first got there to something where every single little shop prepared for it. They had sweets to give the kids, the bakery, the dumpling shop. Everybody had their doors open and kids just paraded down. And then at the top of Happy Valley, they had, things set up with games and stuff for the kids. And yeah, it made me really happy. Well, listen, thank you for letting me unpack that little memory as well. Betty, it's www.artjamming.com. And listen, whether you're a ghoul, whether you're feeling like you're not tall enough, whether you feel like your bottom could use a little reducing, whatever it is that's hanging you up these days, you got to breathe all the time, come up slowly, and remember, you don't know what's around the next corner. What if it's good? If you like the show, please share with your friends, comment, and we'll see you next time.